All right, we are taking a brief little sidestep from engine work. We do have some clean goodies there, which will be going on in a while. Not right away, but in a bit. And it's still nice weather here, but fall is coming and then winter comes after that, usually. So I don't really want this door outside anymore. And so I think we are going to take it in and install it. It's kind of nice not having it here and not having a mirror sticking out. But I can tip it in. Long term, it's better to just do it now while the weather's still good. And just, it's a minor sacrifice to have a little bit of extra space here, just to have more parts put on. Going to recap, so we're going to be installing this door tether. Maybe replacing these hinges. We are definitely replacing the hinges on the door itself. We'll see that in a second. First step is bringing the door inside, and I'm going to turn it around. And once I've done that, I am going to have to take the door card off in order to assess this situation. And this, obviously, this is what's getting replaced. I'm going to make a note. I'm going to mark these with a paint pen, each of these hinges, to mark the exact location. And this, I don't think I'm going to do anything with this. I just don't think that's in the cards right now. Which sucks, but I'd rather just put it on and have it line up and fit. Well, this is what you just love to see. So I got the driver's side door card off. Got the door tilted up there. I got one broken. One broken. Another one broken. Another one broken. Another one broken here. Intact. Intact. Broken. And broken. Did I count that one? That one's broken. Sweet. Okay, round next. We got the weather shield off. Everything looks pretty... I mean, it doesn't look like... It's not nearly as bad as the passenger rear, that's for sure. There weren't too many bits and pieces. I did find... Throwing it around. Found this, and this reminds me of some kind of sliding surface. As best I can tell, window, motor, regulator, all that stuff is intact. Window's obviously up all the way. And someone's been in here at least once. I know that, just based on all that nonsense. So, does that mean that the regulator has been replaced? The motor's been replaced? This is really tight. This is coming right off the motor. I don't like this. I think I'm gonna cut this, and it obviously has to stay out of the way of the window. The window slides down inside this track. One thing that is atypical from the back is there's no missing hardware. Everything seems to be here. This is zip tied up, but I don't know if it's factory, but it seems to fit well. That works just fine. First of all, it's there. That's impressive. This is factory wiring that goes to the speaker. This, I don't know about this. And that's a little tight. Kind of want to pull it through, give it some slack. But anyways, you can start to see our little buggered up friend in there. I'm not sure what to do about this. I think I'm going to just put on... I probably need a whole new freaking door. Otherwise, it might just be hours of banging and wailing on it, trying to get it where it needs to be. I can hammer this in. That's pretty easy. This line actually looks okay. I think I'm going to start with marking these where they are, put the hinges on, and go from there. This is pressed in. It may not be too much of an issue. I can take these bolts out. This whole assembly will drop from the inside. I can replace it, hammer that flat, and yeah, you see from there. I'll do a little bit of hammering, and I can go through these parts again, but yep, made it this far. All right, so here's part of our story. So here's our intact tether with retaining strap. Here's our not intact tether without restraining strap. You can see there's some extra angles on this one, as well as some major indentation. And, remember this from earlier, this is one of two that lived in that gap, much like this. This is nowhere to be found. It's not on the frame, or it's not on the door frame either. So this, well, you get 3 screws out of it, but that is pretty much junk. So I'm going to do some tender, I'm going to try and bring this in and just a little, and that in a little bit as well. This is the main one to try and clear that space and that gap. This actually looks, I mean, this whole thing is distorted, unfortunately. But for what I'm working with, I don't think I can bring this out. This should come out. I don't think I can do that. This might go in a tiny bit. This can go in, and I can at least get this plane flat from here to here. I think, like I said, this is actually acceptable, I'd say. But unless, I don't think I'm going to get anything pulled out, but I can get this pushed in, and that should give us a benchmark. I may actually put the hinge on to give this some rigidity, to have a clamping force between them. So I'm not, if I hit here, this will all kind of trend inwards, which I don't really want. But if I put the upper hinge in, that'll at least keep this in one central plane. We'll see. I'll play around with it a little bit. Okay, so I think this is pretty clever. What I did is, this is a pretty narrow space, which of course, when this is closed, it's kind of, you can't really get in it. But if you open it wide open, what I can do, out, in, now that it's inside, get it as closed as far as I can. I guess that's about it. And I can do a little bit of maneuvering very gently. I don't know how much. Yeah, I can't really get any tighter. What would be ideal is if I could get it completely tight and closed. There we go. That's a little better. And rotate it around and just well, it's less dramatic than it would seem, but I've already made a little bit of progress with it, so I'm calling that there. Okay, that's actually very helpful. Oh yeah, but I don't want to overdo it. So, can I get down here? Perhaps? No? Okay. Well, that's already progress. Yeah, you know what? I am going to try that. Because you have to remember that whatever direction you go, if it's making contact somewhere else, it's going to be playing with that as well. So, okay, well, that's already... Oh, wow! Okay, not to toot my own horn, but that looks great. Gonna hammer this side in a little bit more. Wow, okay. I did... Yeah, sweet. I feel so much better about that. Okay, cool. All right, this is almost too good to be true. Episode 148 of Knipex pliers are the best things in the world. I just I pulled the harness back, reached in, clamped on this, and just put pressure inward. And I think I actually went a tiny bit over. The hole's kind of walled out, but it's all, oh man. This, I'm not worried about that. That's just over the overextension. Yeah, wow, okay. Sweet, I'm gonna start putting it together. So what we are encountering now is that these two, obviously, there's no adjustment here, so these two are in pretty much, 90% of the way. This one now is a little bit off kilter. And I believe that is because this here needs to be pressed in farther, and these need to come out, but as I established, I don't really have a way of pulling them out without, I'm just not sure how to do that with the tools I have and the time I have, because these two moving further out this way would bring this way and this way, and would put us right where we need to go. So what I think I'll do is try and get a little more movement out this way. I'm not exactly sure how, because I don't want to just force this in to try and solve that problem farther than it needs to go. But so that's where we are. See what we can come up with. I'm extremely happy with this. So what I ended up doing is when I realized it wasn't lining up, I took all the bolts out. I took the top one out, and I was taking out this one. I had all but one taken out, and I looked at it, and I started kind of moving this part, and I saw that I could get it to line up. So I said, oh, wait a second. So I loosened everything up to the bare minimum, and I started with a different bolt. I think I put this one in first, just barely got it threaded in, looked here, and I could get one of these lined up, one of the two. So I very, very lightly put that one in, realized I couldn't get the third. So I removed it all out. I went through this process 3 or 4 times, removed everything out, just held the whole assembly by hand and moved it around to see which ones, if I could get 2 out of 3, I could make it work. What happened here was I got these 2 lined up, and this one was way off. And then took it all apart, and I did this one and this one, I believe. This one was then pretty close. So I said, okay, this is aluminum on steel, aluminum on steel. This one is just bare aluminum on this side. I'm pretty sure, yeah, this is just aluminum skin, which is why it bent so easily, and I hammered it out here. So what I did was I pulled this out, and I took I wanted to alter it the least amount possible, but knowing that this was just aluminum, I took a rat tail file, round file, rat tail file, and I just took the least amount of material I could out of this, put a larger washer on, test fit it, got 2 of them good, couldn't get the third. And I just went through that process 3 or 4 times until finally I could did this one first thing, this one, and I just fit it doing these 2 at a time, adjusting this one until I could get this one lined up. At that point, took it all apart for the last time, put it back in, put this in, and then just barely got this threaded, just like a quarter turn on each one, and then very slowly turn. They are now all fully seated, and this is good to go. Okay, so here's our winning recipe for the hinges. I did my homework, and I marked both the door and the shim and the hinge, which of course doesn't matter now, but what I was able to do in doing that is this is the original shim. These came with, the donor car had 1 shim each for above and below. This one had 2 shims on the upper hinge, so I opted to reuse the 2 shims from the original, from Jimmy. So we have door, 2 shims, the same distance apart, same positioning here on this new hinge. And what I did is there's the sort of witness marks from the dust on the shim. So I got the shim where it was on the door, I got the hinge where the old hinge sat on the shims, and hoping that dimensionally these are the same, and that means that we have put this about in the same position. Of course, remember, this was super screwed up. The hinges were messed up. I think the damage was taken on the outer part of the hinge, and these didn't shift around. So I'm hoping I put these exactly where they were from the factory in 1997, which means if we just stick this on with the new hinges on both sides, it'll just fit right on. That's the hope, but we will find out shortly. I think I mentioned this before. Dimensionally, comparing these side by side, so obviously I haven't removed, these are the originals. These are much trickier to get at, and they're a more robust hinge design in general. Hang on, you know what? Somehow now that I'm looking at it, could the original be better than the new one? Seriously? How does that happen? Seriously? All right. Well, maybe that answers that for me. Maybe these are, I mean, they're pretty square. They look really good, honestly. So I think that little recipe is what I'm going to put together. Hopefully, I mean, you don't get many shots at this without chewing it up, and it's a pretty obnoxiously heavy door. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I actually have the foam for that, which is kind of cool. Stick her on, well, obviously take these off, stick it on, and give it a shot. Okay, I've got good news. Good news is it is in, and the hinges are very happy. So we've got lower hinge there, fully seated. Upper hinge, just barely seated. There's a little, that one was bent, which is kind of funny, but it's a big improvement from what it was. And we have the tether in where it needs to be. I'm actually going to give it a couple more taps to seat it better. And I lubed it up, put some oil on it, and once I've worked it in a couple of times, I'm going to wipe off the oil and put on some grease. It's coming through on the inside, and it has nice, pretty soft motion. Except for the fact that it is no better than it was before. In fact, it might be worse. So that's super, super frustrating. I know the hinges are happy, but the door's not fitting better, and it is actually worse because I can't close it at all now. So, however, one thing that I'm thinking about, so this is going to force, having two shims here is going to force this down, and I think what I'm going to do, unfortunately, one of the reasons I wanted to leave it off is because I knew it wouldn't open all the way, so I'm afraid I'm just going to have to, well, I'll show you. I now can't get this in here. I have a little bit driver that will fit, but I can't get any torque on it, and they're pretty tight because they're door hinges. So now, I'm kind of annoyed because I feel like I'm just going to have to sit on this and have the door only partially, I may have to literally like strap the door shut for the next however long. Super annoying. Or what I'll probably do is I'll see how much adjustment I have here and just bring that as far down as I can. Mark the original spot and bring it down as far as I can, just the stupid door will close. But for all I know, it's going to be hitting the bottom step anyways, so 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's not done, and I may have more work ahead of me. I got it closed. It's actually, I mean, as it is right now, it's good, but I had to put a ton of pressure on it to get it up, just like it was from the very beginning. But this gap here is horrible. Part of that is because after I think this damage was caused, you can see all of these screws are off by just a little bit. Some more than others, somehow. But anyways, so this damage happened. They probably didn't do anything with the door itself. They shifted this, you can even see kind of a gap here. They shifted this forward, probably as far as it would go. Realized that, because also this was popped out, another interesting thing, that I put that back together, but they didn't do anything with the door. They just shifted this down. So once this gap, so the door is finished, and this gap is all cleared up, then this gap really isn't bad at all, actually. It's pretty comparable to that. So if this, if I get the hinge to the point where this is exactly how it is, and it swings fully out nice and consistently, then I will work on this gap by bringing this in. So the actual work I did, I pushed this in. I may put some pressure on this to kind of press that in so this line is a little bit better. But really, I'm not going to do very much with this. If anything, I'll polish it up. Looks like, I don't know how this happened. It's kind of an odd, it clearly swung open and overextended, but it looks like there's something else going on. Like there's all these scratches and, I don't know. Not my, oh, you know what? I wonder, could a deer have run into this? No. Who knows? There's some odd scratches along this. It almost makes me feel like they took a corner too tight or something. Whatever. Anyways, remember there were 2 shims? Oh, sorry, I don't have my light. But there were 2 shims here and 1 on the bottom. On the hinges that came with this, there was 1 on top, 1 on bottom. So I removed 1 shim. I barely was able to get it without stripping the hardware. I was about to strip the hardware down here, so I stopped. This is how, I think this is how it's going to be until we are out of the garage. For storage purposes, this is how it's going to be for probably a few more months. Door's on. I did make some progress. It's got new hinges. These are actually pretty happy now. There's just further tinkering to do. That can be done after it is up and running, because that is not going to get any closer to getting on the road. That is. All right, gang, it is a beautiful fall day in Eastern Washington. Sun is shining. We are back on the Rover. Top #1 priority now that it is outside and I have the door wide open. If you remember from last time, we replaced the tether, got our new pin, new hinges, but it's still not sitting quite right. Actually, it's pretty much exactly where it was before I quote-unquote fixed it. So we're gonna get that squared up. Old hinges and several extra shims. I looked at both the red, can you see here? So this is already slipped. I did loosen it up, so now it's worse than it was even before, but there's a shim here and there's a shim here. It had 2 shims above and 1 below. I'm gonna go to 0 shims because both the red and the white Land Rover, well, let me double check. Might make a liar out of myself. Okay, 1 shim below. Oh, so there is 2 above, 1 below. Well, that's what the green one was, and it did not fit. Oops, did not fit well. So all that to say, we're gonna play with it, see what works, and once the door is done, closing properly, swinging properly, I'm going to at least partially reassemble this. I'm gonna wait until I get the window control module repaired to confirm that everything is working well. The regulator is obviously fine, but just make sure the motor works and everything. But yeah, that's it. That's the plan for today. All right, we're making some really good progress. I'll show you the, basically, I'll let you know now, we've gotten to where we want it to be, but this is giving me an opportunity to show you guys a little trick to get your door latches to work better. Do you see this? This is your lock lever. This is your actual door actuator lever. So there's this little catch pin here, which I probably can't get with my bare hand, so bear with me. Okay, hopefully we've got the room here. Back to where we were. How's that look? So we use our handy dandy tool. This little clip here is actually attached to this mechanism. So what we want to do is just gently force this free. I don't know if I can do this while I'm holding it. Come on. Oh, there we go. It's not supposed to pop this out, but it's fine if it does. Pop this out. So this rod is now free. If we look down, you see that? See it moving? I'm actually tightening this from above. What that will do is draw up the lever so there's less play in the latch. I'm just gonna do it real quick and test it and then come back because I don't think that was very helpful. Okay, I got it to where I thought it would work well, and it did in fact work well. So we'll go back here. This lever here, what it does, it's threaded on the bottom, middle finger, the friendly finger up here. Latches in here, comes down, and threads into a lever there. That puts preload. So as you thread that down, what that does, and I'll come back to this, that shortens the throw to draw this before it engages. I didn't get a before shot, but so what we'll do is manually latch it. So this is what it looks like when your door is closed. This is up around this here. So that allows it, you know, when you're driving along, the spring load is against it to hold it latched. When you shorten the throw on that threaded rod, so I got my thumb up here, I'm just gonna start pulling it. Let's see if I can get these in the same shot. There we go. So just when I start to pull it, it comes out. So what happens was okay, I'll get to the actual work I did. So no shim here. This hinge itself is as far that way as I can put it. You can see this little gap here. That will pull the door or suck the door into the body. This one, same story. I have it pushed out on the door as far as I can to suck the door into the body with now 2 shims below. I also, well, I rounded this corner, I straightened out this corner with the Nippix. So it's actually, I'm pretty happy with just no hammering, just pliers. I'm pretty happy with that. All that to say, I also adjusted this up and in a tiny bit. everything I wanted to do. See, okay, that's locked. Thanks for reminding me, because that would just go bang. So, open that. Now, oh. So, in shortening that throw, now that it's closed, you can even, it actually it actually springs off just a tiny bit, and you can hear the seal opening up. It's got a better seal now too, so there we go. So what's funny, what was my gauge before? Oh, I don't know where it went, but this gap is huge. I can tell someone actually pulled this out. The whole fender was pushed out that way. The door actually may have kind of broken the seal and pressed it out. So I've got these loose, and I'm going to spend not a ton of time, but a little bit of time trying to work it back to close up this gap, because this gap is huge. However, this gap is very, very reasonable. Little higher at the top than the bottom, but our lines are really good. It's a tiny bit high, if anything, which is going to help it. It's going to last long, you know, it's going to wear in better that way. This door, I don't think has been modified. I don't think this has ever been touched. Yeah, no evidence that this has been touched at all. So we've got there and there, pretty good. Go to the other side. These doors as well. We check our hinges. No evidence that these have ever been messed with. So we'll call this a factory gap here. Wider at the top than the bottom. Factory gap here. Pretty even through. And up here, this, I'd love the other side to look like this, but you can see this is a much tighter interference fit than on the other side. And this also has, this does not, well, that one's up, but it doesn't look like this has been messed with. This one definitely has. If we do nothing more, I'm actually very happy with that. But I think I will tinker a little bit. This is still very dirty, but power locks work, latch works, everything's lined up, closes, opens. We got, so with this, the door being back on, the wiring through, wiring is all back in the harness here, tucked away into the who's he what's it. Got this back in. Original mount, original hardware. Carpet is tacked down. Got all of the little buttons in. Actually glued this piece, so this piece is functional and sitting in there happy. Got this piece in. It's holding the carpet down nicely. Got this carpet tucked into the shoulder part. That's sealed down. What very little surface rust there was, I used rust treatment on it to clear it up. But got a working speaker, well, as I assume working speaker. I also confirmed once the window was wired up, as you can see it's open, all 4 windows work together. All the switches work, all of the windows work. That is just such great news. So, oh, that's great.